With the increased damage to jungle bosses and the added stun, this relic becomes much more versatile while still serving its original purpose of jungle camp clear. So, for people who didn't play back in season, or before season 3, I guess, this used to be Hand of the Gods, and there was also an alternate you could build into the tree of Hand of the Gods called Fist of the Gods, which would stun any enemy gods in the radius for 1 second. So, that is put back onto it, which now means that Wrath previously wasn't picked up because securing the jungle camps wasn't as worth it, and you still needed stuff to help you in fights. It now helps you in fights. It's better against jungle camps, and they increase the cooldown. I'm pretty sure that this item will see a lot more competitive play. 1.25k damage early game makes Gold Fury secure insanely quick early game. I mean, that's like a quarter of the Gold Fury's health early game. So there will be a lot more early Gold Furies possible because of this item. You could just walk out of base as a support level 1 with this. It'll definitely see competitive play. I'm not sure how strong it is, but people will definitely test that. Item changes. New item Ritual Dagger. Relic Augmentation is something we are very excited to try. Ritual Dagger is launching with a set of stats that is useful to a wide array of gods. Dude, I really can't talk. Allowing for many different types of relic-based strategies. So, 1850 gold. I think that's the same as Wingblade. 200 health. That's 100 less than Wingblade. 10% cooldown reduction is... I'm comparing it to Wingblade because it's in the same tree. 10% cooldown reduction just replaces the 20% crowd control reduction on Wingblade, 20% attack speed, 10% movement speed. Whenever you use a relic, the duration of that relic's effects are increased by 50%. So this helps. Really, all relics are stronger. Just like to go up to relics to look at them. The Hog stun now goes to 1.5 seconds instead of 1. It won't affect teleport. I'm not sure if it will increase the duration of the effects from Sunder. It'll increase the duration of sprint. It'll probably increase the duration. It will decrease the duration of frenzy. They just didn't list it because they're adding a new mechanic to it, not changing the time. It'll make curse last longer. I don't think it'll interact with blink. I'm pretty sure. It'll interact with thorns and everything else. So this is just probably a really nice item just to throw in there for a quick power spike. I think this item will see a lot of play. I don't know if you would keep it in a 6-item build. If you're a support, for example, you could go... You may even be able to bring back the old Jigs build and just do this instead and then go in auras and everything and have a lot more utility through your actives. If you're a jungler, you could probably go Boots and then Jotuns, like your normal first couple core items, and then this item is a ton of utility. It gives you extra movement speed, attack speed, increases your DPS, health, and survivability. Cooldown reduction is always good. This item will definitely be used by a lot of classes and a lot of different gods. It's hard to judge how strong it'll be until you get to play with it in game. I think the best effect for it, or the best synergy with it by far, is sprint. Being able to sprint from 7.5 seconds, like the old sprint had to get nerfed because of how insane the duration is, and that was 6 seconds, and if you have sprint with this, it is 7.5 seconds, which is even crazier. I'm pretty sure that'll be insane. So I would expect a lot of that item to be built. Does that also apply to Aegis? It should, yeah. I don't know, it should apply to beads and Aegis, so it buffs your beads and Aegis as well, so there's a lot of applications for that item. I think this is one of the more, if not the most interesting items they've changed or added. New item, Emperor's Armor. The ability to strengthen and weaken towers is a new and potentially powerful effect. Emperor's Armor will allow for Guardians, Warriors, or even some riskier tower divers to tip the odds in their favor while fighting around structures. 2200 gold, 250 health, 30 physical protection. Those stats are extremely cost inefficient in general. So the passive basically has to be really good for this item to ever be bought. And the new passive is Aura. Enemy structures within 55 units have their attack speed decreased by 30 seconds. Allied structures within 55 units have their attack speed increased by 30%. This is probably one of the more interesting items I've ever seen added to Smite since I've started playing the game. I think... Okay, so just to explain a little more about the item, they said during patch notes that these effects will not stack, and for example, if your team has 2 people with this item, and the other team has 1 person with this item, that does not mean that your 2 override their 1. If each team only has 1, then the effects will cancel each other out, and it'll be as if the item wasn't built at all. If one team has 1 of them, and the other team has 5 of them, it doesn't matter, it still cancels out. So, there's no stacking effect, there's no overriding effect, anything like that. This could be an interesting item where if you're a support and you go something like Wrath. Okay, so one of the trickier things to balance in Smite is early game Snowball. And in the past, Gold Fury, when Hog was auto-buy, before they nerfed Hog last year, they had to nerf the amount of gold that Gold Fury gave because people could do these early Gold Furies where you would just crack in a Gold Fury or Anubis to Gold Fury or Hoi Yi to Gold Fury, and then you would just hog it, or Zeus is a common application now. You would just do the Gold Fury and you would be super far ahead and you would snowball. So they changed how much gold the Gold Fury gave, and then they removed Hog, so the snowball wasn't as bad. Since then, they have now made Hog more viable, potentially, and the Gold Fury is still very easy to do. A team like Enemy, for example, was known for just, at level 5, they would just come over, Zeus out, Hoi Yi out the Gold Fury, and then they would just take it, and that was without Hog. The reason I'm talking about Gold Fury is because a lot of those early game comps that were designed to do an early Gold Fury to snowball their lead, if you had one bad fight, then your lead would basically be gone and you would be playing from behind, and all those comps that are designed to snowball, if you play from even or behind, they're pretty much crap compared to any other normal team comp. So, the reason I bring that up is with this item, if you get a lead, you now have less risk throwing that lead because you can siege towers easier. And if you're a support, you could do something like get Hog at level 1, get Boots, or whatever other movement speed option you want. Get Sovereignty or whatever aura or whatever, like High to the Urchin, it doesn't matter. And then right after that, you could get Emperor's Armor, and your team could just start sieging down towers at like level 12 or 15 or whatever, just super early on in the game. And in the right situations, you could capitalize on this passive and just try to snowball a lead like crazy. That's the only application I see for it. If you're behind, I think building this item would be a little counterintuitive, because if you're behind, you need to catch up, and it's not going to make you tanky enough if you're behind. Like, if you're behind and you build this, you're not really getting that much tankier. You're just going to get shredded if the other team just has more damage in their head. And if you're that far behind, then I don't think the enemy team normally cares if your tower is shooting quicker. They're just looking to kill you. It could have some viability there, but I think it's a way better offensive tool than defensive in my mind. The third application is split pushing. So, gods that people hate, like Loki or Skadi, because she can give backdoor protections, Vulcan can give backdoor protections, all that stuff. They have been really irritating to play against. Apollo is another one, because if you leave them unchecked, they'll just take a Phoenix and then just backdoor like crazy. I don't think this item will help them too much. It does give them more time to try to take it, but I'm not sure. Like, you'll still have to defend against split push the exact same way. Like, all you have to do is push the wave, and they can't do this, I guess. I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. It may make split pushing a pain in the ass again, and hopefully it doesn't. But other than that, I think this item should be okay, maybe. Adventurer's Blade, remove crowd control reduction, movement speed increase from 7 to 10%. That's just to line it up with the Ritual Dagger. Ancile. As an anti-mage item for warriors or assassins, the additional damage from Ancile's old passive wasn't proven very useful. Ancile now provides additional magical protection, as well as an additional form of crowd control. This added utility ensures that players who successfully ambush the enemy will have extra advantages. So, one without even reading the new passive, increasing magical protection from 40 to 60 is crazy. I think the item costs 2,050 gold. Maybe it's like 2,200. It's somewhere around there. Uh, so the new passive, whenever you take magical damage from an enemy ability, you unleash a shockwave that silences enemies. That silences all enemies within a range of 20 units for 1 second. This effect cannot trigger more than once every 60 seconds. That's the same radius as an item like, what's it called? Mantle of Discord? Yeah, Mantle of Discord. Same range of that. A silence is a much worse CC than a stun, obviously. This item, probably, if it sees any play, it'll be from warrior soul laners who need to dive a mage in a team fight, maybe like a Raijin or a Vulcan or something like that, just a hyper carry mage. And you'll probably see this in combination with the new Thorns relic to just dive mages and punish them super hard. That's the only application I can think of for this item. I don't think it's too strong. I don't expect it to see much play, but it's an interesting effect. And overall, I think it's a good change because Ancile in its previous form was complete shit. The Executioner, Bancroft's talent wait, what? Okay, is this Bancroft? Okay, this is Bancroft, but it says Executioner, I guess, so ignore this. Bancroft's talent allows players who are low health to be a major threat, but players needed to be in extreme danger to feel the full benefits of this item. Making the power buff max out earlier lets players use the risk and reward mechanics of this item more effectively. So basically you get this full passive at 25%, which is 100 power rather than 0%. That's just an all-around good change. I don't think there's much to talk about. It's just a good change in general. It just makes the item in a better spot. And Bancroft's was 2,400 gold. It only gives raw power. I guess the lifesteal is pretty nice, but in the past, a lot of mages, when looking at a 6-item build, you would compare this to something like Book of Thoth, and Book of Thoth would give way more power. But now that the passive from Bancroft is more accessible and more practical, you might see it get a lot more play. I think the only person I really saw build Bancroft a lot in competitive was Chaos. He did it for a little bit on Zeus. He then stopped doing it. I'm not sure what his reasoning for either or was, so I'd like to hear what mid players' thoughts on of this, but in my opinion, I just think it's a good overall change. This is a big one. Early in Season 3, we made an adjustment to Golden Bow that shifted it from a niche item to a mainstay of hunter builds. After a review and a lot of community feedback, we don't feel that this was a positive change for the overall balance of the game. Hunters with Throwing Dagger or Golden Bow are too good in all lanes at all points of the game. Hunters are the staple of dual lane because they need help in the early game to reach their full power level late game. Throwing Dagger and Golden Bow remove that progression while also washing out the differences between the god and the hunter class. Between each god and the hunter class, sorry. Hunters with stronger clear potential suddenly saw their advantages nullified. Guardians with stronger clear to augment early game weak hunters also saw less play. Moving forward, this item will allow their specific pros and cons to each hunter, as well as make the class easier to balance. So blah blah blah, you could read the rest of it. That's basically all you need to know. So this is very interesting. A lot of pro players are very divided on this item. So Golden Bow was good for the reasons they said, to bring back god diversity and god viability in the dual lane. In my opinion, I thought that was a trash change because it's just a band-aid fix. It's just going to be a it just makes up for all those gods who are a little underpowered in such a bad way early game. Gods like Shablanque, for example. If you want that god to be something you'll see in other patch notes, I guess this is an easier way to put it. Something you'll see in other patch notes is a god like a Freya, for example. They haven't ever buffed her early game clear. They've done stuff like buff her pulse duration to make her a better hyper carry in the late game. So they don't make up for her weaknesses, they highlight their strengths. And Golden Bow went against everything they did in the past on that note. Like, instead of just helping gods like X-Ball be better in the late game and be more worth to consider in a comp that is supposed to go late game, they just made all of their early game fine and about even. And it just was a huge band-aid fix to all those gods. It dumbed down dual lane laning phase so much. Like, with a removal of purple buff and so many other factors that have added up over the past